Hey everybody, and welcome to another Good Vibes Gaming discussion. I'm your host for today, Ash Paulson, and I'm joined as always by my good friend and GVG co-founder, Derrick Bittner, as well as our superstar art director, Daniel Alba, to discuss a series that is near and dear to my heart, and that is, of course, Kingdom Hearts. And I say my heart, but all our hearts. That's why we're all here, because all three of us are Kingdom Hearts mega fans. I think it's safe to say, to call us all Kingdom Hearts mega fans.
Yeah.
And it's the series' 20th anniversary, and we couldn't let that pass without talking about such, an important series to all of us. And Daniel, I have to give you credit, man, because you were the one who reminded us, like, hey, it's Kingdom Hearts' 20th anniversary, and people have been wanting a Kingdom Hearts discussion from us for a while. This is the time to do it. So, hats off to you for reminding us to do that, man. Thank you. And normally we have our patrons at the producer tier and above vote on the topics of our weekly discussions, and we will keep doing that. But occasionally we do have our own topics that we just want to discuss that are timely, such as Kingdom Hearts' 20th anniversary. And next week we'll be talking about Kirby and the Forgotten Land, doing a spoiler discussion about that, as well as a spoiler discussion about the Sonic 2 movie. So we will resume those polls in a couple of weeks, but right now it's all about Kingdom Hearts. And I want to go back to the very beginning, you guys. I want to know how you got into Kingdom Hearts and how did you find out about it? How did you get into the first game? Derrick, let's start with you, man.
I mean, thank God for gaming magazines, because I remember getting a new issue, and I can't remember if it was EGM or PSM or Official PlayStation Magazine, one of those three, because those were my standbys. And just 1 month, I remember it's definitely in high school, but I forget whether I was reading in high school or just happened to have it just thinking about it in high school. I came across this preview about this thing called Kingdom Hearts that combines Disney and Final Fantasy, and having gotten into Final Fantasy thanks to 7 and being all about Squaresoft at the times, like I just eating up anything they released. I'm like, oh, I'm also a big Disney fan. This looks interesting. Really, a world based on Alice in Wonderland, a world based on Aladdin. That's wild. And then just getting all that more information each and every month, and seeing they're getting back the original actors for as many roles as they can. They have this original story. Here's the original characters. And I'm like, I don't care about the original characters. I want to know the... I want to see all this other stuff. And like, oh, wow, there's Cloud. And like, it just had this magical thing. And the thing that I think I'm most embarrassed about when I first encountered this series is when they announced that it wouldn't be Uematsu doing the soundtrack, because to me that was Final Fantasy. It's like, how could you not have Uematsu there? Not realizing how amazing I don't think I'll be honest, I don't think Uematsu could have captured Kingdom Hearts in the same way.
Oh, I don't think so either. And I think Uematsu is an incredibly gifted musician. Of course, the Final Fantasy, or the main Final Fantasy composer, up through 10, or up through 9, I guess. He was one of 3 people who did 10. But looking back, it's impossible to divorce Kingdom Hearts from Yoko Shimomura. She has left such an indelible mark on the series with her just incredible music and her masterful use of leitmotif throughout the entire series. And I just can't imagine Kingdom Hearts without Yoko Shimomura. And no, I totally hear you, man. It's hard on the face of it to be like, wait, Uematsu, but Final Fantasy. But I think, I agree. I think Shimomura came in and absolutely made this series her own. And you can tell for sure. But Daniel, how about you, man? How did you get into Kingdom Hearts? What was your first, how did you first learn about the series?
Kingdom Hearts is how I became a Sony fanboy. That's how I got into getting that I saw the commercial. I don't know if you all remember the commercial for this game.
Oh yeah.
It had Simple and Killing just like banging in the background, and you went through a whole roll of different Disney worlds and Final Fantasy characters, and I was like, I want to know what this is about. I really want to play this game. Like, that was the one that really pulled me to be like, hey mom, dad, can I get a PS2 for my birthday? And then, that was the first game that I ever got for anything PlayStation that I ever owned, was the first Kingdom Hearts. And I remember telling my mom, like, this is the game that I want to get if I ever do get a PS2. And then she had to come back to me and say, this has Goofy and Donald. Are you sure this is the game you want? And I'm just like, that's the game that I want to play. That's the one.
Yeah.
And Yeah, it was like also I also heard my friends just in the background talking about things like Final Fantasy because they had a PS1 and I had a N64. And so just to learn that Final Fantasy was also in this game with Disney characters, I'm just like, oh my god, I could cross off a lot of different things I'm missing about gaming at this moment by just playing this one game right here and learning more about Final Fantasy as well. And so yeah, that's pretty much how I got into the series. I didn't own any kind of magazine besides Nintendo Power at the time, but that game really just launched me into owning and getting more involved in different PlayStation titles, and it's a really poignant series for me to bring up and talk about. Yeah.
Same. I literally can't overstate how tremendously important and impactful Kingdom Hearts has been to me in my life. Not just my gaming life, just my life in general. It's just been such a huge fixture for me. And I'm totally aging myself by saying this, but I actually learned of Kingdom Hearts through the first ever trailer they debuted, as Squaresoft debuted at E3. And I don't know what year it was. I'm guessing it would have been E3 2000, maybe 2001. I'm not sure which. But that was back when Squaresoft had closed theaters at their booths. And I mean, you had to get in line and they would, usher people in, probably groups of 20 to 30 at a time, and then show trailers for upcoming games. And this particular year, they showed the first ever trailer for Kingdom Hearts, and it just grabbed me immediately. It grabbed me. I was like, whoa, I need to know more about this. This is cool. And I was just taken in by everything. Not just the incredible marriage of Square and Disney, but also the original characters, Sora and Riku and Kairi. And I loved their designs. I loved the whole vibe that they carried. And I followed the game as much as I could up to its release date. And actually, my dad was able to get us into the Kingdom Hearts launch party here in LA, years ago, 20 years ago. And I'll never forget it. It was just like I knew that I was in the middle of something special, but I didn't know just how special. And then, of course, the game went on to come out, and I loved it. It was everything I wanted it to be. And kind of like you were saying, Derrick, the Disney elements were cool, and I was super into which world am I going to go to next, and which Disney boss am I going to fight next. But the thing that made me stay was the Square content, but also just the original lore, these original characters whom I've fallen in love with. You all know, who are watching, my reaction to Sora in Smash Brothers. That kid is one of my favorite characters of all time, and he's just been such a big fixture for me, and just a character I've loved to follow throughout the years so much. So that's how I got into Kingdom Hearts, and that was it for me. Once I played the first game, I knew I was in for the long haul. But it's not easy to be a Kingdom Hearts fan sometimes, because not only do you have to, not only do you have to follow, some fairly complicated lore, and by fairly complicated, I mean extremely complicated, although I do think it's a bit overblown.
Yeah.
It's not impossible to understand.
No.
You just have to pay attention.
Exactly. You have to pay attention. It's the way it's kind of weaves into each other. It's also the difficulty of it being on so many systems. Thankfully, that's been solved.
That's what I was going to say.
Thanks to all of this. I would say that the plot does not go off the rails until Dream Drop Distance. Up to that point, I'd say it's relatively easy to understand. But then Dream Drop Distance introduces some things, and they kind of clarify it and give you ideas of how it all worked in 3. But thankfully, 3 also wipes the slate clean for the most part, and you can just go on.
And I guess just to let folks know for later, we will be discussing, general spoilers from the various games. But in terms of where the story is at now, we'll be reserving that for the very end of the discussion. So, and I'll mention that before we get there, so you can duck out if you haven't finished Kingdom Hearts 3 or Remind or Melody of Memory. So don't worry, I'll certainly let you know when we're going to discuss those spoilers. But going back,
I just wanted to mention this because I just saw it as I have the wiki up here, because I forget release dates a lot, but I completely forgot that Kingdom Hearts released on September 17th, 2002. That's my birthday.
Yeah.
That's I got it on my 17th birthday. Like, my God.
Yeah. And that's exactly a week after my birthday. So, I remember that was like everything I was hyped about that week or that year for my birthday was all Kingdom Hearts. And Yeah, so going back to kind of what I was saying before, it could be tough to be a Kingdom Hearts fan at the time, because if you wanted to follow the series, it turns out you're going to have to own multiple consoles and not just PlayStation consoles, because the next game after the original was Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories on the Game Boy Advance of all systems.
So
And
weird.
even though it doesn't have a number in its title, don't be fooled, because this is a game you absolutely need to play, or at least watch the story for, to have any sort of idea what is going on in Kingdom Hearts 2. And by extension, 358 over 2 days, but we'll get there. So Chain of Memories originally came out for GBA, later remade for PS2, and uses an interesting, I'll be kind, an interesting card-based battle system where you have to play a card even to swing the Keyblade. And I gotta say, this is among my least favorite games in the series from a gameplay standpoint. I think the story is actually really interesting, at least the parts of it that aren't just retreads of the Kingdom Hearts 1 worlds.
Yeah.
But I didn't find it that fun to actually play. How did you guys kind of land on Chain of Memories?
I guess I'll go first. I remember getting Chain of Memories for Christmas and just diving right into it. And the thing that always stood out to me is the production value on Chain of Memories on Game Boy Advance blew me away. The fact there was a full motion video cutscene on the Game Boy Advance blew my mind. Seeing that opening, getting in there. The sprites are fantastic for every character. It looks really good on the Game Boy Advance. It is a gorgeous game. Great music. It was this, I consider it sort of this training ground, because on one hand, especially with it sort of revisiting all the worlds from Kingdom Hearts 1, it felt like, oh, this is just a fun spin-off. It's not really, it's not plot important or anything like that. But hey, I have a Game Boy Advance. I loved the original. This will hold me over to Kingdom Hearts 2. And then you get into the plot and it's like, oh my God, there's a lot more here than I thought. Going into places I did not expect it to go. And there's a lot there. With a whole other second playthrough to get the complete story. But without even getting into that, gameplay wise, I have never been able to get into card battle systems in games.
Same.
It just never worked. But I was wanting to give it a shot for Chain of Memories, and I had a hard time until I realized it's like, oh, it's basically just an action RPG with cards dictating what you can do. It's like, it's not really that different. And once I figured that out and got the system under control by the third or fourth world, I was pretty set and actually had a good time, and once I got a good deck going, I felt pretty confident. It's still repetitious as hell because of the way the door system works and the way that you go through all the old worlds again. It can wear you down quite a bit. But when you get to the original stuff, that's amazing. That's great. Just content. Chain of Memories, I'll just mention that real quick. I've never beaten. I played a little bit. I'm like, oh, I hate this. And I've never gone back to it. What about you, Daniel?
Oh, man.
Go for it, Daniel.
I played, I don't think I really paid attention to Chain of Memories until I started playing Kingdom Hearts 2, because I was like, oh, this is like a side game it's like a card game, it's like a spin-off or something. Right. Okay, I'll just jump into 2. And then you watch the intro to 2, and then there's Naminé, and there's Marluxia, and Riku's suddenly fighting Ansem. I'm just like, what's happening? I don't remember any of this. So I was like, okay, this is the Chain of Memories is the game that prepares you that Square Enix is going to go places with not just the numbered titles, but also every title that's going to be like every subsequent title is going to be with the Kingdom Hearts name in it. And so I ended up playing that after 2, weirdly enough, because I just like, okay, I'll get Kingdom Hearts after this. So I kind of retroactively understood what the story was afterwards. But then I eventually also played Chain of Memories as well on the PS2. And that was a lot. That was a weird trip, because all of a sudden, like a remake of this game was so out of nowhere, and to have it voice acted, and then the Sora's voice actor ended up sounding different already at this point, because in Kingdom Hearts 1 he has that very much like more of a kid's voice, and then later on in the series, like, he still has that outfit, but then you see Kingdom Hearts 2 voice coming out of him, and it just kind of threw me off.
It's weird,
But yeah, as a whole for the game itself, I honestly didn't really mind it. Once you get to the rhythm of it, once you understand like how it works and like how card systems kind of function, it wasn't really like too difficult. I just treated it as a different game in the series because, especially on the Game Boy Advance where I first played it, it was just a handheld experience. So I thought, oh, it's not gonna play like Kingdom Hearts on the PlayStation. So I guess I was more accepting to the fact that it was so unique in its style, and I kind of had my own fun with it. It is repetitious, but there is some fun to be had with that system. But I'm glad they didn't go back to it. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Picture Panda Otter in our live audience patron chat makes a good point, saying some slates are broken as hell, and that's one thing I remember is like once you learn how to break that game, it's very easy to coast through. And I think it's Sonic Blade is one of the really broken slates that you can just spam, if I remember correctly.
I think.
So it's for me, I look back on Chain of Memories as a net positive, and I don't know which one I like more. I played through both Chain of Memories and Re-Chain of Memories. I really like the cutscenes that are added to Re-Chain of Memories, the voice acting and everything. I'm not so sure that the gameplay is all that improved, but it's I still don't really enjoy the battle system in Re-Chain of Memories either. But overall, I do look back upon the game as a net positive because even if I didn't love the gameplay, and I didn't really even like it, you know, aesthetically on the Game Boy Advance, as you said, the sprite work was incredible. The story goes really interesting places, and SquareSoft was in later Square Enix, and I guess Nomura by extension. They are so good at dangling that carrot at the end of each game and really making you think like, where is this going? At the end of the original Kingdom Hearts, you got the door to Kingdom Hearts, and you have the deep dive trailer, of course, with the crazy buildings and what's going on and the hoods and Kairi, and like an older Kairi standing on Destiny Islands watching the stars fall. And it's like, you don't know what's going on at the time. So it just makes you think and your imagination runs wild. And at the end of Chain of Memories, you get your first glimpse of Roxas and Twilight Town, but you have no context whatsoever.
idea.
The crazy thing about the crazy thing about the original Kingdom Hearts, Nomura later admitted he had no idea if they were getting a sequel. He just put that in there. It's like, imagine if that failed and that was your sequel base. Like, what's especially with the ending of Kingdom Hearts 1, it's like,
yeah,
this just connects.
And he's just so good at formulating that sequel bait that's really gonna just
that he then has to fill in the details later, because that's the thing. I'm not sure. Does he have a plan or not? That's
I know it's kind of hard to.
Oh, he's coasting this one all the way through, even now.
But speaking of sequel bait, later, 4 years, approximately 4 years after the release of the original Kingdom Hearts, we finally got Kingdom Hearts 2, and we would later come to learn that 4 years is nothing compared to how long we were going to wait for Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah.
Oh,
but, Kingdom Hearts 2 released in 2006, and you guys, for me, I know for sure that this is one of the most like heavily anticipated sequels of all time for me. Like in my entire life, there are very few games that I was more excited for and more obsessed with at the time than Kingdom Hearts 2. Was it the same for you? What about you, Daniel?
Yeah, I named this as one of the best sequels ever made in a pretty recent discussion.
And you started with Kingdom Hearts 2, I forgot. Right.
Because that game just holds a special place for me, because I remember it was one of those games where I was talking about it with all my friends in the between classes and such, because we were all playing Kingdom Hearts 2 at that point, because I got a couple of my friends into it as well from the first game, and we were all about that, and they ended up dropping it afterwards, but just the way that this game improved upon so many things, from arguably exploration of the worlds, just combat. This is where the combat of the series really started to take its roots and become something that they're going to model even up to Kingdom Hearts 3 now. And everything about it just flowed a lot better. The fact that you can do like different forms and the dry forms made everything feel a lot more fresh, because you could just completely change the way that he functions or that he sort of fights for a set amount of time during battle. And oh my goodness, they really also dove into the original content with this game, with the Organization 13. And I know there are some people that aren't a fan of that as much as having to be more about the Disney characters, but I know we kind of ate all that up.
Oh, I absolutely did. Because it's like, what's all of this? What's going on? And it was just, it it also kind of cemented the idea for me with Kingdom Hearts story wise, where you get amazing beginnings, you get amazing endings, but that middle fat, there's barely anything there. It's just like, well, it's Disney time, with very little plot otherwise. And
the various games. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
Oh, I'm just saying it goes crazy with the original content that it'll squeeze in between, like the certain parts of Hollow Bastion, and it has Mickey, like Yoda's in this game going crazy with that Keyblade. I'm just like, oh my god, it's just so ridiculous, and I love it.
Well, and that was something else too that was very cool about Kingdom Hearts 2 is that Kingdom Hearts 1 gave us just that barely tiny little tease of Mickey at the end. You only see his silhouette, but Kingdom Hearts 2 finally delivers. You get to see King Mickey and fight with him and have him alongside you and participate in the story, which was really cool, I think.
I mean, I think all of us were just excited to get to that big moment that was in all the trailers, and you just wanted to experience it for yourself, the Battle of 1,000 Heartless, because that was mind-blowing at the time.
Yeah, it sure
was. Crazy.
And I do agree with you guys. One of the deserved criticisms this series gets is that it isn't very good at balancing its storytelling. Like there are a lot of games in which nothing much happens with the overall plot in the Disney worlds. And I think Kingdom Hearts 1 did a little better job at that. But I also do want to call out Kingdom Hearts 2 because while it's true that there are worlds that are kind of self-contained, like the Pride Lands, you also get what I think is still maybe my favorite world in the entire series, which is Space Paranoids, the original Tron world. That world literally is woven into the main storyline because
that is one of the best examples, honestly, of how they weave in the Disney storyline. It is and really good.
Yeah, no, really good. And they build up this really special, I think, relationship and friendship between Sora and Tron that unfortunately doesn't quite get followed up on in a way that I would have liked.
I mean, later on we kind of need a third Tron movie so we could conclude that whole thing.
Yeah, we do.
But I really love the friendship between Sora and Tron, and that definitely stands out to me as a high point in Kingdom Hearts 2. And Kingdom Hearts 2 is a game full of high points. And I still remember when I got to that plot twist in Radiant Garden where it's like, oh, Ansem isn't who that guy calling himself Ansem all this time in Kingdom Hearts 1, that ain't Ansem. And it's like, what?
Yeah, I know.
Oh my god.
That's like,
was
pulling the rug under us.
Blew your mind at the time.
Yeah, and that was an absolute mind-blown moment. And then there are just so many great, plot threads that finally get resolved and followed up on. We finally find out what happened to Riku, and Sora and Kairi are finally reunited. And then you get, of course, what I still think is one of the best final battles in the entire franchise.
Yeah,
with Sora going full anime, slicing buildings in half. And then Sora and Riku get to fight Xemnas together. You have those cool team up attacks, and this game just turns the anime up to 16, and I love that about it. And in hindsight, and I've said this on different discussions before, I do love a lot of the later games in the series. Birth by Sleep is another one of my favorites, and I liked Kingdom Hearts 3, but in hindsight, Kingdom Hearts 2 is kind of the perfect ending to the series.
It does serve as a good conclusion.
3, I know that when I finished Kingdom Hearts 3, one of my first thoughts was like, maybe Kingdom Hearts 2 actually had the perfect ending in hindsight, as much as I want this series to continue. But we'll get there. But Kingdom Hearts 2, I think, is just one of Square Enix's best games ever, and I know that it was one of the most highly anticipated games for me ever in my life. But that is not where things would end. We're only getting started.
Oh no!
Because then Square announced a pair of Nintendo DS games. I'm sorry, no, a pair of handheld games. 358 over 2 days for DS and Birth by Sleep for PSP. And 358 over 2 days released first. And this is an interesting one. This came out in 2009, and it seeks to kind of fill out and help contextualize what happens between Chain of Memories and Kingdom Hearts 2. And I think it's very necessary in terms of what it does there, but it's weird that it came out so far after Kingdom Hearts 2, because it doesn't really take, none of what happens in it happens after Kingdom Hearts 2. It's basically an interquel between games that have already come out. But if you're hardcore fans like us, that was, necessary, vital storytelling. And Unfortunately, though, it came wrapped in a game that wasn't. It just wasn't all that fun to play. It was just.
It's
It wasn't
boring.
great. It's boring.
Yeah,
It's boring.
that's
it
his
takes on a
biggest sin.
mission-based structure.
The mission-based structure is boring. You're revisiting worlds over and over again with only minimal changes. And the gameplay itself, the battle system works. It's fun. It's cool teaming up with the other organization members. There's a lot of extra content there where you can play as all the organization members and some of the other characters. There's some great extras in there. And I will give the game credit for this. It takes a concept that seems so dumb and tropish at the outset, where it's like there was a secret 14th member you never knew about in Organization 13, and made that dumb plotline work because, damn it, by the end of that game, you are invested. You are completely into everything it's putting down. And I don't want to spoil anything because I think it is strong for that aspect. Not that any of the compilations bothers. Compilations rightly get rid of the gameplay. It's like, here's the story. Here's what you care about. And that's the best part of this. And there's a lot of like, boy, you get sick of sea salt ice cream because they eat it so much in this game. And But
I also
what it sets out to do, it does well. It's just the gameplay is too repetitious for its own good.
Yeah, like I actually like how it was bold in certain ways. Like I agree, the mission-based structure, gameplay-wise, was not fun. But I also like the boldness in the storytelling in terms of they went all in on the you go to work every day, you hang out with your friends after work every day. It gets very routine, and life can become very routine, as we know as adults. But they didn't shy away from that. It does feel routine, but I think that was on purpose. They get into a cycle of doing this job they don't really enjoy every day, and really all they live for is hanging out and getting ice cream together. And they took that concept all the way, for better and worse. But I agree, Derrick, by the end you're invested. And 358 over 2 days also, I think, made it clear that Kingdom Hearts isn't always a happy series. There is a lot of tragedy that in Kingdom Hearts woven throughout the entire narrative. And I'd say 358 over 2 days is pretty much all tragedy. It's one of the
it has to end. Games. It has to end tragically with how Kingdom Hearts 2 begins.
Exactly.
And it honestly makes the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 2 feel all the more rough in hindsight, especially those interactions with Axel.
Right. And such key lines as like, the end of my summer vacation. And as I was actually going to mention this, but Picture Pandotter says, but who else will I eat ice cream with? And it's just, I'm thinking of one particular scene in general that the first time I saw it, I cried. I was like,
oh yeah,
that got me. Oh God, it got me. And as you were saying, Derrick, it took what should have been such a stupid plot line about the secret 14th organization member, and in my opinion, formulated one of my favorite characters in the entire series out of it. I love Shion. I love her. And they somehow did it. But Daniel, we've been prattling on and on. How do you feel about 358 over 2 days?
Tetsuya Nomura is a goddamn mad genius when it comes to just this game, and people don't realize it. They don't realize it because it's so meta in this game, and the fact that, like, as Roxas and as a player, you know that working for these guys is bad. Like, you don't want to, or you don't really want to support the organization for what they do throughout the entire series. But you're just a guy with a part-time job, and it's lame. You don't want to be doing your part-time job. What you look forward to is after the job, when you want to hang out with your friends and just chill out and go have lunch, or in this case, ice cream. And so that's what I was invested for in playing. Like, I would do the job so that I would see how these characters would interact and start to, get to know each other more, because slowly Shion starts to open up, and you and Axel are just like buddy and bros for a while, and then they all just kind of have that routine of going, as Ash said, the routine of doing the same stuff over and over, which I guess it for better and for worse, as mentioned, because that's how you get to know these characters throughout the entire 358 days that happen throughout the game, which is kind of crazy to think that you experience that many days, even though there's skips in between. But but that whole year is something that, like, you get invested with their story, and then by the end you're like, I don't want Shion to go away. Like, can she just stay with us? Mm-hmm. Because in context, that line, who will I eat ice cream with, has been made a joke of, like, and it's going to be made a joke of till the end of time. But when you've gone through the game and you experience the context of that, it's a really painful line to listen to, because you know that like
crushing.
one of the only friends that he's really made in this organization is now leaving him, and now that after that we lead into different cutscenes that led into why Roxas ended up where he was. And so yeah, it's a lot to take in, but man,
I think that's the
There's
key
just a lot
to
of tragedy.
Kingdom Hearts, because from the outside, you see these moments, you see these lines, and they're objectively kind of dumb, you know, when you really look at it. But when you play and get invested, oh, you don't care. Like, you're right there with it.
Oh, it is.
Absolutely.
It is 100%. And I've said this so many times in other discussions and such, but it is the power of anime. It's the power of friendship. It's the power of anime. And this is one of the most animeist video game series that ever animate. And that's one of the things I love about it. Stuff like those power of friendship moments. And, you know, the heart may be weak, but it may even give in. But deep down, I know there's a light that never goes out. And I love that shit, man. I live for those moments. Sora's goofy ass power of friendship lines. That's what just make this series so special to me. Well, one of the many things that makes the series so special to me. One thing I did want to point out is Cornflakes in our live audience patron chat corrected me. I do this a lot, but it's actually 358 days over 2. For some reason, I always say that wrong, but it's 358 days over 2. So
it's understandable. No
Yeah,
one will blame you for
nobody
getting that title
can
wrong.
pronounce it right, really.
Yeah, exactly. And Arcwing 24 also brings up a cool point that I had forgotten to mention, saying, I love how the final mix super bosses in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 hint toward future games. And yeah, 358 over 2 days over 2 isn't one of those games, but I do love that. How in Kingdom Hearts 1, you get to fight someone you didn't know at the time would be Zenmus, and so on and so forth. And that would happen later on.
Man.
In other games in the series too, like Birth by Sleep Final Mix and, you know, and more. But speaking of Birth by Sleep,
Oh boy.
that's the next big game that released in the series, and this was another one that I know, I'm sure all three of us and just Kingdom Hearts fans in general were hyped over the moon for, because finally, after years of getting content that filled in, you know, story parts that we already knew about, we're finally getting new content, and we're finally going to learn who these 3 Keyblade armor knights are that we saw in the Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix teaser trailer for whatever's coming next. And it turns out that Birth by Sleep is essentially the series' Kingdom Hearts 0. It's a prequel, and it tells us the stories of 3 Keyblade wielders who were doing their thing way before Sora ever did in Kingdom Hearts 1. And yeah, this is the game that introduces us to Aqua, Ventus, and Terra. And honestly, I would say it's tied with Kingdom Hearts 2 for me for being my favorite game in the series. It is such a good game. And it introduces also another one of my favorite characters in Aqua. Derrick, I know you are a big Aqua fan too, right?
Oh god, yeah. I was invested.
Good.
This game. Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm just saying. Oh, good. We're all very big Aqua fans because she's probably my favorite character in the series.
Yeah.
Oh right. Okay. Cool.
She is the mom that just has to sacrifices everything for her children.
Everything.
Oh my
She's another
God.
one of those endlessly tragic characters. Like, there are so many characters who suffer for so long and don't really get their resolutions until Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah, they really laid into the just always laying into like these trio of characters that just can't get their happy ending together, can they?
No, definitely not.
The original with 358 and with Birth by Sleep.
Yeah.
It was so interesting at the time, seeing these 2 portable games announced, because I had a DS, but I did not have a PSP. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll just have to skip the PSP version and whatnot. But as it was getting closer, and I saw like how much more it meant, the fact that it was these new characters and brand new worlds that we have not seen before in past games after getting retreads for so long, it felt. To have something fresh and new, it was like, I gotta get a PSP. I got the Birth by Sleep Special Edition PSP day it released.
Nice.
Played it to just endlessly, because it was just so fun. The battle system, they come up there, easy to break, but so satisfying with just how much is in there and how much you can do, and just really fun. And I love how in my opinion, it got away from that whole sag in the middle by having 3 short stories, and the ability to just like, it's like, no, it's all killer, no filler when you're going through these guys, and you're just seeing how it expands upon everybody else's, how the pieces fit into place, and they interact with each other. It's fascinating and great stuff, and it's just a lot of fun with some, probably one of the best finales in the series. Because just
I think so too.
In terms of stakes and how things are going and the outcomes of things, like it feels grand in a way that we hadn't seen before, with some true tragedy going on with a lot of the characters.
Genuine tragedy, and again, the kind of like that Ansem moment in Kingdom Hearts 2. There's a moment at the end of Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep involving Terra and what happens to him, and then when a certain line is said after the thing that happens to him, and it's like, oh my god, the way this series just delivers on plot points you didn't even know you were thinking about, and then revelations about Terra that that all of a sudden make things work for 2 and whatnot. It's like, oh my god, I didn't even how did I not see that? Is the kind of the big thing I kept coming back to. And the connections to the future games in this series, how it all connects. It works as both a great place to start, but also just filling in those gaps that you had from the other games. But totally worth buying a PSP. Oh, totally. And I do want to make special mention of the music in Birth by Sleep, because there are certain songs in that game, like the battle themes for Vanitas. When you fight Vanitas, again, the use of leitmotif is masterful, because you can hear Sora's theme woven into Vanitas' battle themes. God, Vanitas' revelation the connection, was so made massive. The connection between Vanitas and Sora, it's perfect. It makes that in that moment when you're hearing it and you're fighting him and you hear that leitmotif of Sora's theme, it just pumps you up even further. It's just so, the storytelling through music in this series, I think, is some of the best in any video game ever made, period. And I love Birth by Sleep to death. It's got one of my favorite battle systems in the series. Like you said, Derrick, easy to break, but so fun. And it's got, as you said, the story is all killer, no filler, and it gives us insight into what happened before the events of Kingdom Hearts 1, while also setting up some interesting things for the future in terms of what Sora's role would ultimately be going forward. And I just adore this game. But Daniel, you said you're also a big fan of Birth by Sleep, and especially of Aqua.
Yeah, I think this is right up there, right up there with among my favorite games in the series, with Kingdom Hearts 2. Because just the way that the story is told, the way it starts out with them all together trying to earn like their mark of mastery. The fact that only Aqua is really the one that completes that, and the other 2 characters are kind of like still trying to find their way. Just seeing Terra's struggle throughout the entire story and where that leads, it's just like, it's like I should have seen some of these coming in hindsight, like Derrick mentioned. But with that, just exploring these worlds, these different Disney worlds. It's weird because it's actually a prequel where you see like Snow White, Cinderella's world, Sleeping Beauty, like before what happened with some of these princesses in Kingdom Hearts 1. So they very specifically chose certain worlds to interweave this way, and I thought it was really smartly done. The fact that they were still able to get a lot of the actors for a handheld game, the production values were crazy. Yeah, this series is insane. Like the fact that there's so many genuine we didn't even mention how many genuinely like actual voice actors from Disney, and as far as the English goes, that is incorporated into this series. Like even Kingdom Hearts 1 had the original voice actors for Alice, who was an elderly woman now, and she was even there for the cutscenes in Chain of Memories. But yeah, that's that one. But this is also the first game that introduced the new voice actor for Mickey Mouse as well, and that was a whole thing as well. But yeah, God, just man, it broke my heart when I'm blanking on his name, but I love him so much as Xehanort, because he steals the show. Xehanort. Oh yeah. Xehanort absolutely steals the show. It was Leonard Nimoy. Leonard Nimoy. Yeah, Leonard Nimoy. Leonard Nimoy amazing. Killed it as that Xehanort. Voice. And it is so unfortunate that he passed away.
before he could finish it.
It's-
And they kept cycling through actors. They've had to recast Xehanort so many times because they need these have to get these great elderly men, and then they pass away. It's unfortunate, but
yeah.
I think Leonard Nimoy was still the best because he just reveled in that role.
Yeah.
That role was made for him.
He was so good. I just hear I'm replaying some of his lines on my head and getting goosebumps because he just embodied Xehanort. And I remember seeing the third Transformers movie and not realizing that he was in it. And he voices Sentinel Prime. Not a good movie at all.
No.
But he voices Sentinel Prime. And I was sitting there thinking, oh my God, dude, just say Keyblade one time. Just, I don't care if it doesn't make sense. The story's stupid anyway. Just say Keyblade. He's just so good, man. And yeah, that was his first turn as Xehanort, and he just absolutely killed it. And I agree with both of you. Aqua is another one of my favorite characters. She's a top 3 Kingdom Hearts character for me. Sora is still my number 1, of course, but I think she's 2 or 3 for sure. And some of the stuff that you see that happens at the end of that game, man, it's just, again, that moment with Terra, and it's like, whoa, oh my God. This is what has been,
as the chat has been saying, and everybody can agree, Terra's rock stupid in that game. But if you gotta go through,
so stupid.
If you go through his,
his name's Terra, so
yeah,
dumb rocks, man.
Yeah. No. Like whenever I think of Terra, I always think of Sora's hilarious line from Kingdom Hearts 1 where he's talking to Riku on Captain Hook's ship, and he's like, "You're stupid." That's exactly what Terra is. He's just dumb as a rock, but. You gotta love
that's another thing is how I love how each of these characters in some way interacted with the trio for the Destiny Island trio in some way or form, and even just as subtle as the fact that they each touched the hilt of the Keyblade. At least Riku and Kairi did, would touch their corresponding person's Keyblade. Those little plot details. It's just so great to just kind of connect everything in the future, and to see where that goes. But man. I feel so bad for how Aqua tried to solve all these problems and they ended up causing more problems, and then she just got stuck in darkness for a very long time. So long that they had to make a side game about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Just to keep us happy.
And speaking of side games, Corn Flakes in our live audience chat is reminding me of a line that I always found hilarious. Mickey, it's Riku. They put bugs in him. And I think that's probably a great segue into the next game, which also came out on the Nintendo DS, which is Kingdom Hearts Recoded. And that was essentially, we don't need to talk too long about this.
No,
it's essentially a remake of the mobile game, Japanese-only mobile game, Kingdom Hearts Coded. And it is essentially another retread through a lot of Kingdom Hearts 1 worlds, with a little bit of the tiniest sliver of new story content at the end, basically explaining what is in the letter that Sora and company read at the end of Kingdom Hearts 2. So after all this time, this came out in 2011, and Kingdom Hearts 2 came out in 2006. So 5 years later, and one interquel and one prequel later, we're finally getting a sliver of new content that takes place after Kingdom Hearts 2. But it's essentially it's a cash grab.
So does Birth by Sleep, because you find out that that Terra Aquaventus' story is being what's related in the letter.
Oh no, of course. I just mean in terms of what is happening to Sora directly.
Oh right.
But
It's
but it's essentially, and Recoded's a weird one. I mean, I like some of the things it did. Like, for example, I think it was the Olympus Coliseum world. It becomes a turn-based RPG.
Yeah, that's fun.
That's neat. It's kind of a cool way to switch things up.
There's some cool ideas in there. And honestly, the ambition here for a game that originally started out on Japanese cell phones, flip phones with number pads playing this game.
Yeah, right?
Right.
Like,
and
thank God it got a remake.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say, as much as most of the story doesn't really matter, but I do like the vibe that it has, like the whole ghost in the machine, there's something hidden in Jiminy Cricket's diary, something we have to go and find and digitize a diary, and who's the ghost in the machine. I think it's kind of a cool mystery, but ultimately, most of Recoded doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I did enjoy the twist of we were digitized too, we're in the machine.
You're right.
There's some cool stuff in there, but it's easily the most skippable entry in the series.
But I do agree with Picture Panda Otter in our patron chat. I would go back and play Recoded over playing Days. Days has a much better story, but I would rather play Recoded. I think it was a much better game, gameplay-wise, than Days was.
It does, yeah. It's a bit. I think because it's less repetitious, but it's also kind of played out by that point, and you're gonna get tired of it.
Right.
It's true.
Well, before we move on, Daniel, did you have any particular thoughts on Recoded, or do you want to go ahead and move right on?
Yeah, I mean, that game pretty much just was that's the filler of filler for Kingdom Hearts, because really all you need to do is see the final cutscene of as to why these games are connected, and then you're pretty much good to go from there.
Yeah.
But I've only watched the cutscenes via the collection so far, the story so far, so
You're missing
there's not really much else to say about it.
I think love the favorite moment was the revisiting of Hollow Bastion in that, and like having it not be card based. Like, okay, that's cool. I got excited there, but
that was cool. The best thing from that for me is like some of the soundtrack, like No More Bugs. I really like that. I really like that song actually. But
Sorry,
No More Bugs. Like there's two versions of it. I really like that song actually.
It's a great song. Yeah. We could have a discussion by itself on just our favorite songs.
Oh, easily.
Oh yeah, we could.
Oh, easily.
Easily.
That said,
we don't really have that kind of time.
Right. I will say, Dearly Beloved puts me in a mood for Kingdom Hearts every time. You have to get that startup screen. Bam. I'm there. I'm tearing up. I'm ready.
Especially the Kingdom Hearts 2 version just gets me every time. Every single time.
Oh my god.
So, as we said earlier, it's a little bit overblown when people say, Kingdom Hearts is impossible to understand. The story makes no sense. No, it makes plenty of sense, and it's not that hard to understand. But then you get to the next game we're going to talk about, which is Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance for the Nintendo 3DS. And man, I love this game. I love it. I love the gameplay.
Yep.
I love flow motion. I love the way the 3D visuals along with flow motion. It really does make you feel like you're in a dream. We've all had those dreams where we're flying or falling or doing things you could never do in real life. And I do think that this game really encapsulates the feeling of being in a dream really well. But the one thing they did not need to introduce to Kingdom Hearts, the story, was time travel. But they did it anyway, and it's a mess. It's a mess. I love this game despite itself, but the story is an absolute mess with the time travel stuff added. Derrick, it sounds like you're in full agreement.
Yeah, I mean, I like the worlds chosen. It's fun to see a lot of these worlds be in the game. Have an actual Pinocchio world for the first time, having something based on Fantasia. The revisit to Traverse Town and having the characters from The World Ends With You. There's some great stuff in here. But that storyline where it's, you have to just sort of like the first time I experienced it, I was there with it. I'm like, okay, I'm down. I have no idea what's going on, but I'm down because it's cool. And there's some brilliant moments going on where it just really catches you by surprise and shows you just how crazy it all is, and how just things have gone so wrong in a way you do not expect in this game. But then there's when you start to think about it, and the logistics are like, wait, what? That's when it gets a little bit much. But gameplay wise, it's great. The worlds are way too empty, but they had to do that to facilitate the flow motion system. But it's such a switch, it's like it's a lot of great things, but a lot of dumb things as well. And I personally did not mind the going into a dream, the swap between Riku and Sora. That never bothered me.
Actually. Yeah, it didn't bother me either.
It only bothered me when you're in a boss fight and you run out of time, and then you have to redo the boss fight all over again, no matter how far you got into it. But otherwise, it was a cool concept to have them switch back and forth and manage time that way. But this game I really enjoyed playing Dream Drop Distance. I've only really played it that one time on 3DS. I want to play it again on on an actual console soon, because that's really that really appeals to me, being able to do it on console now. But just the way that. Story aside, I really enjoyed the worlds that they included here as well. Like they did some interesting things, like the Three Musketeers. Who thought they wanted to explore the world of Three Musketeers, which has probably some of the best battle music and music itself in that game for me, anyways. And then the Symphony of Sorcery, Fantasia, like that was so
So
interestingly
cool.
done
Yeah.
because there's no voiceover, there's no voice, there's just music. Like they just facilitate the music itself, and it's so cool because obviously Fantasia is a symphony itself, and just the ideas that they go through and how they execute them. There's always that one world that throws you for a loop in these games, like with Timeless River or the Sorcery Symphony. Just the way that they kind of throw these ideas in ways you wouldn't expect to, and make them work. But
The way that
yeah,
the,
well,
go ahead.
I'll go ahead.
No, the way the usual Keyblade sound effects are replaced by music stings in that world is brilliant. It's
Mhm.
so it's
Oh
so
yeah, I
good.
love
Yeah.
that, man.
And
The
this game also had the go ahead, Daniel.
oh no, go ahead. I was just gonna keep going about story, which we
Oh,
could all go
okay.
on forever about.
Yeah.
This game also had another one of my favorite worlds, which was the Tron Legacy world, which I think,
Hmm.
even though as I said earlier, it did disappoint me in the sense that it doesn't really follow up on Sora's friendship with Tron, who's now Rinsler, and I really wanted that to be followed up on. Visually and musically, it's one of the most atmospheric and I think perfectly represented Disney worlds
Mhm.
in the entire franchise. It's really good.
I haven't even seen the movie. I was invested. I'm like, I'm down for this.
There you go. Yeah. But yeah, so Dan, you were going to talk a little bit more about the story.
Yeah, but I mean, what direction
Where
do we
you
take this in? Because there's so much to
exactly?
talk about, especially when you
Yeah,
finally get to the world that never was, and things go off the rails. And like, I really was starting to, I thought I was losing my mind when I saw Sora flipping back and forth between Kingdom Hearts 2 Sora model and Kingdom Hearts
yeah,
3 Drop Distance model. I'm just like, wait a minute, what's happening? I don't, I need an adult.
yeah.
Yeah,
Dream Drop Distance goes to some wild places.
it does, but I will say that finale is exciting with how,
It is
again,
really
Mhm.
exciting.
how desperate it is. Like they are on their back foot by the end of this, and it is shocking in that way. Like it goes hard for the end, and just sort of shows how powerful Xehanort is at this point.
Yeah, and how he's a genuine threat. Sora is almost literally like taken out of the game. Essentially, he's
Mm-hmm.
almost possessed by Xehanort, and that would have been game over for everyone. And he comes surprisingly close to winning. And the one thing that always rubbed me the wrong way though was that
I
what happens to Sora? He fails his Mark of Mastery exam because of what happens to him. Riku passes, Sora fails, but it wasn't his fault. It was Yensid's fault.
yeah.
Yensid failed that exam for him. Sora didn't fail anything. Yensid's oversight directly led to
Mhm.
Sora failing that exam, and I still think that's bullshit. I don't think that was Sora's fault at all. But
Yeah.
before we move on, I will say that Dream Drop Distance has another one of my favorite anime-ass lines in the whole series, and that is at the end of Sora's story in Dream Drop Distance, where he says something like, "I know the Keyblade didn't choose me, and I don't care. I'm proud to be part of something bigger. The people it did choose." And Zenith is, or no, it's Zigbar who's like, "What? You can't be serious right now." He's genuinely taken aback,
Uh-huh.
and it's a great. And then of course, yeah, Riku's story goes beyond where Sora's ends, and we, that has an incredibly exciting finale with young Xehanort, and even beyond. And that last fight, everything that it
Oh my
implies,
God.
if you've been
Mhm.
following the series throughout, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
say, not spoil the fight, but I'm gonna say when you're doing that battle and then you suddenly get shot locked, I'm just like, oh my God. Like you're getting targeted with shot lock. I'm just like, wait,
Yep.
what's happening?
It's like,
Yeah.
oh god.
Just a ninja panic mode. Oh,
Yep.
it's so great.
It's so good. I really, despite its misstep story wise, this is a game that I really love overall, and I'm willing to overlook the mistakes it makes because of everything else it just gets so right.
Mhm.
So weirdly enough, then the next game to talk about is something I don't think any of us ever thought we'd get. I think it was back in Birth by Sleep Final Mix, like one of the secret trailers teased 0.2 or Birth by Sleep 0.2, a fragmentary
Oh,
passage.
I'm shocked. Do you not want to talk about Kingdom Hearts Key or Unchained Key? Was that
Oh,
before?
I guess that did come out first. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't play it personally, but yeah, that
I
did come
thought,
out first.
have
So
any of us
Kingdom
played it? Because I only played a little bit when it came out, and it didn't quite grab me. But have you played it at all, Daniel?
I'm probably the same as you. I played it for a little while. I got some characters that I wanted to get, and
Yeah.
that was pretty much like. Oh, I remember I stopped around the time that or maybe it was before then. They actually introduced some characters from The World Ends With You, which was also a cameo in Dream Drop Distance, which we didn't
Oh,
talk
okay.
about. But I thought that was really cool because that's a
That
cool
was
game that
really
people
cool.
should play.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Right.
as far as Unchained Key goes, I didn't really. I know the story elements, but I didn't
I,
invest myself in the game itself.
I
Yeah.
still need to sit down and watch everything for Unchained Key
Right.
because we got that movie, which definitely as part of 2.8.
Back cover.
Back
Yeah.
cover that went into it. But where the plot seems to go in Unchained Key is wild, especially with its kind of relaunch thing. I watched a little bit where they went over the basics of the original, basically covering most of the stuff of back cover and getting to that point. But then there's this sort of rebirth of the world or something to the world where it changed up, and you meet Marilusha's original body and his original
Lorian,
character,
yeah.
and learn about this stuff. And there's like from what I can tell, it is a legit murder mystery in this game, and figuring out the who betrays you and who does this. It sounds like a truly interesting plot, and I really hope they make another back cover to cover this, because Kingdom Hearts 3 seems to be building and beyond, even beyond Kingdom Hearts 3 is building beyond this. Like I think we need more breakdown, because this seems important to be locked to mobile.
And I think that's kind of what annoys me about where things are at right now, I guess, is just that so much of what happens in Kingdom Hearts 3 and what has been happening lately in the series is confined to a mobile game. And back cover, which we can now watch. But, back cover doesn't even come close. Would you stop? Would you calm down, LA? Jeez, the Kingdom Hearts High Police is coming.
I mean,
Sorry,
the people in it's all right. It's the people in our chat talking about Unchained Key, who have played it. Arkwing is saying it goes even deeper than you think, and Young Ben Kenobi saying it's unironically, purely story-wise, Unchained Union Key is their favorite Kingdom Hearts story. That is fascinating there, and what I've seen, that definitely has me interested. And apparently, with it wrapping up now, you can just watch all the story, all the cutscenes in the app. So it's something I want to check out eventually.
That's definitely something I'm going to do, because, back cover is interesting, but it doesn't come even close to covering everything you need to know from Union Cross and Key. And I just wish it was more easily digestible, especially since so much of Kingdom Hearts 3's original story content is completely based on that.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just a little weird, given that. But it's funny that we didn't talk about The World Ends With You's cameo and Dream Drop Distance, because that might actually end up being more important than we thought, given where things might be going right now. We're not sure, but
maybe.
Maybe.
I've not played Neo: The World's End With You, so I don't even know how that goes. Only Daniel has, and I somehow doubt there's a Kingdom Hearts connection, to be honest. But
I don't think there is.
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, it's probably not.
But so there was Kingdom Hearts Key and Union Cross, which, as we haven't played, of course, or much of, but we do want to go watch those cutscenes. But I do consider that a failing on Square's part for making so much of that vital story content confined to mobile, and that's just kind of like okay. But they did throw us a huge curveball with part of Kingdom Hearts HD 2.8, and that is the fact that we got a game out of a trailer that teased something called Birth by Sleep, a Fragmentary Passage. I think this happened way back in Birth by Sleep Final Mix. It was something that came alongside Aqua's little playable mini episode while she's in the Realm of Darkness. And we just get a trailer for something that we didn't know what it was. Birth by Sleep, or Fragmentary Passage. What's that? Then years later, as part of the 2.8 compilation, it's a playable standalone game for Aqua. It's like a mini episode for Aqua, chronicling the rest of her time in the Realm of Darkness, and it's essentially, gameplay-wise, a prototype for Kingdom Hearts 3. So it gives you kind of a glimpse of what Kingdom Hearts 3 would feel and look like, while also filling in a really interesting part of the story leading up to what we would eventually find out is Kingdom Hearts 1. And this was a really interesting one because, again, I love Aqua as a character, and I was so happy to be able to see what she goes through in the Realm of Darkness. And but this is our first glimpse of seeing Kingdom Hearts on PS4 tech, like seeing how good and how amazing it could look. And I really enjoyed this, especially the ending. The way the ending is
Weaved in.
well, we'll get there.
I
We'll
mean,
get
it
there.
makes
But
it makes Mickey seem like a jerk, but
it does. It does. But essentially, I mean, 0.2 is all about finding out how Mickey lost his shirt.
It really is.
Ending,
That's the
It's
best
all
thing out of
explained.
this is they have they
Yeah.
have to explain how Mickey lost his shirt for the for the ending of Kingdom Hearts 1.
It's so good. And like when I realized what was happening and I realized that we were watching Kingdom Hearts 1's ending from a different perspective, that was another one of those, oh my God, this series is brilliant moments for me. This is so cool. And yeah, how did you, Daniel, how did you feel about, you're such a big Aqua fan. How did you feel about 0.2 when you went into it, man?
I was ecstatic that Aqua got her own episode. Like, it's not a full game by any means. It's a fairly short game if you just kind of go right through it. But just the fact that there's some kind of like tech demo for Kingdom Hearts 3 on the PS4 with this one game with Aqua, it was super exciting. And I knew that there was an extra episode in Birth by Sleep Final Mix that you have to like get either 100% in normal mode or beat the game on proud mode, and you'll get this episode with Aqua, which I never actually got because I didn't realize you had to do it on proud mode to really get it easier, and I wasn't about to 100% it otherwise. But just playing it like this, yeah, it was just so fascinating to see like just kind of what the kind of story that she went through. As far as the story itself goes, like she's kind of just getting worn down as you get through more and more of the game, and it's hard to watch, you know, because you want her to, you think she still kind of thinks that she did something good because she just completely shut off from the rest of the world and everything that's happening above. But this is essentially like while Kingdom Hearts 1 is happening, because of how the story ends. But yeah, gameplay wise, it was really cool to just kind of see what we're gonna lead into with Kingdom Hearts 3. And yeah, it's hard to like rank it because it's not a full complete game or anything, but I did quite enjoy what I did play of that game, for what it was.
It works well as a demo, a preview of what Kingdom Hearts 3 could offer, and honestly a character piece. Like I like that they go into the mindset of Aqua and how she's dealing with the fact that she's been in the darkness for how many years. It's fascinating,
Right?
But yeah, it is just sort of a mini thing with a really good taste of what's to come, and does emphasize help emphasize a moment in Kingdom Hearts 3.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, definitely.
Well, and speaking of Kingdom Hearts 3, we have finally arrived 13 years after the release of
How
Kingdom
fitting.
Hearts 2. I know, perfect, right? We finally got Kingdom Hearts 3, and this was a surreal moment, I think, probably for all of us. I remember just, holding the box in my hand thinking, oh my God, Kingdom Hearts 3 and this game was like the stuff of myth for so many years. Like, when was this actually going to ever come out? And it's finally here in my hands. We're finally getting the end of the Dark Seeker, what Nomura calls the Dark Seeker saga. We're finally going to see what happens and how it all turns out. And it delivers, but I would say it's a bit of an uneven delivery. Would you guys say that's a fair assessment? Would you agree with that?
I'm so split on this because I famously gave it
Kingdom Hearts 3, right?
I was in love with it. I absolutely adored it. Granted, that was me getting it early, rushing through it, and just like I was blinders, just straight on in this game the entire time, absorbed in this world and just loving every bit of it. The big complaint I have is how the new like theme park powers come out of freaking nowhere. There is no explanation. Like they really poorly explain how Sora has access to all these new abilities. It's just like, nope, he has them now. Congrats. And it's just weird because they made sure to explain all that in Kingdom Hearts 2. It just seems kind of rushed. Also has one of the best fake outs where it says the prologue is 2.9. That's good. But
yeah, I did like that. That was really cool.
Nomura knows exactly.
Yeah. It's mixed them in on it. But the worlds, the comedy, the gummy ship is the best it's ever been. The combat is fantastic. Everything about this game hits. And I think the reason it doesn't quite hit as hard as for you, Ash, and the reason I still think this is better than Kingdom Hearts 2 from a pure gameplay standpoint, is the story does fumble by the end.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite hit as much as we want because it's not
Right.
involved in that story throughout the entire game.
Exactly. It felt like they were kind of rushing to wrap it up.
Exactly. It's like we did our typical thing with Kingdom Hearts, and then at the end it's like, oh right, we have to answer all these questions. Bam, 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 bam. And that's why I think that's why it feels uneven for you, and why it probably didn't improve for you until you got Remind, where they smooth those elements out. Yeah,
Remind, that was the ending that I feel like we needed.
Yeah, Remind,
like the proper conclusion,
absolutely helps in that regard, in wrapping everything up, especially making sense. But there's some moments in here that are just fantastic. They're shocking. Absolutely. They're satisfying. They really do the job. And again, some great worlds. Pirates of the Caribbean is fantastic in this game. Like, holy crap, what a world. And by far some of the funniest moments in the series, just because Disney characters are standing up to Organization 13. It's like, you know, nobody's ever loved you, or the door sequence in Monsters Inc. I'm sorry, this game is still absolutely fantastic to me, and
it's so funny.
I think I still prefer it to Kingdom Hearts 2. I know that's controversial, but it's Birth by Sleep and 3 for me, because it is just that fun. I honestly would love to go back through and I think they added critical difficulty, because the game, that is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
The game is very easy.
Way too easy. And as you were saying, the attractions are so overbearing. Mm-hmm. They're popping up all the time. And I think that's one thing about the gameplay that I like Kingdom Hearts 3's gameplay generally. I like the battle system. I like the way it plays, but the attractions, and like you're getting grand magic, and you're getting all these, you know, basically like forms, grand magic, attractions, and they're all stacking on top of each other, and it just makes the combat trivial. It makes it so trivially easy.
Have you tried critical mode yet?
I haven't yet, no, and I'm sure that
it will kick your ass.
Yeah, no. But I just feel like even Proud Mode was just like made so trivial by the attractions in a way that the previous games in the series weren't. Proud Mode was a decent challenge before. Mm-hmm. But in this game, I stopped using attractions like a few hours in, because they just demolished everything. And it just seemed like it wrecked the balance of the game. But I do agree with you, Derrick. There are some of the series' highest points in this game, with the comedy and with some of the long-standing plot threads that are finally delivered on. I was a wreck at the end. I mean, as much as I didn't like how the Keyblade Graveyard stuff was handled, in terms of how it felt like they didn't know really how to bring it all together, I was a wreck when Roxas and Shion and Axel had their reunion. I was
Axel, in tears with Aqua's return.
Yeah, with Aqua's return, exactly. With that, and with Terra, Ven, and Aqua finally getting to come back together, Roxas, Axel, and Shion, same thing. The only thing I didn't like about that was that this was all happening while apparently an organization member is just off to the side, chilling, waiting for them to have their moment, and then the fight starts again against another boss, and it felt so sloppily handled. But the moments themselves absolutely delivered for me.
Yeah, I think the overall everything that happened in the Keyblade Graveyard, like they could have probably balanced that out a bit more throughout the story, instead of having it all stockpiled at the end and have everything happen all at once. Which they did a bit of that with like as you mentioned with Aqua, like her little return to the world happened in a pretty towards the middle of the game, which was like a good time to pace it out. And then just I don't know, man, there's some things about this story that has me questionable, but I mean, like, overall, like, if you don't get emotional and tear up at Dearly Beloved when that game starts up, I don't want to talk to you, because that's like one of the best renditions of Dearly Beloved in this game. And like, I think this is one of the best soundtracks Yoko Shimomura has developed throughout the entire series, because literally everything throughout the series culminates into especially towards the finale. But there's just some parts of the story they could have done better, like interactions between characters that didn't really feel like they landed as well as I wish they would have. Like
and
like even things like conversing with Kyrie and Axel, like you get those in between different chapters, but it didn't really go anywhere in the long run.
Not really. And they did. Fortunately, she gets Remind fixes this.
Yes.
in a fantastic way. And the where was I going with this? Oh yes, another common complaint that I honestly fail to notice because I'm so invested in the main cast at this point: lack of Final Fantasy, complete lack of Final Fantasy.
Right. Yeah.
Other than the
Which was
Moogles.
Yeah. And Remind kind of fixes that. You don't get enough time with them.
No, you don't. And honestly,
Moment.
where's my Sephiroth rematch?
I know. Where's Sephiroth? And I want to see that for that plot line between Cloud and Sephiroth and Tifa now furthered in Kingdom Hearts 3. And never happened either.
Maybe it continued on into Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Right? Exactly.
That's where they ended up. It's all linked together.
I do totally agree though, Derek. Like some of the, as I was saying earlier, some of the series' highest points are here in this game. And especially humor-wise. I will never get tired of watching Woody talk shit to young Xehanort, ever. Same thing with Jack Sparrow and Luxord. That was just breathing in his face. Like, they just take these anime-ass edgy characters and just take the piss out of them. As you said, Sully throwing Vanitas through a door. It's fantastic. And I'll never get tired
Yidis Vanitas was a common thing for that game for a while.
Yeah. But I will also say that I think this game has some of the series, or at least one of the series' lowest points too. And for me, that's the Frozen world. I hated that world. I thought it was poorly handled. It was basically just Sora and company on the sidelines watching the movie unfold around them. And
the main gameplay was in this weird ice maze. Yeah.
It was just all snow. Like it was all snow, and then they had to make up that ice maze so it wasn't all just snow.
Yeah.
It was hurting
and
my
I'm
brain.
saying this is someone who loves snow areas in video games, but this just was it just wasn't fun to play through. It was confusingly structured. I just didn't like the Frozen world at all. It just felt like it was
that's fair
an excuse to have Frozen in the game because Frozen,
was
has been the
huge.
hot shit for Disney now for exactly.
Yeah.
I love how everyone's like, multiple people in our patron chat are like, Ash, just let it go. Yes, I know, let it or Derrick go. Derrick
Sure did.
go.
Oh God.
Yeah, so I think we've summarized what Kingdom Hearts 3 does so right and also so wrong. One thing I'll say before we head into Remind, which, as we said, does fix a lot of the story's flaws, I think. But I'll never forget and this is going to be a Kingdom Hearts 3 ending spoiler for anyone who wants to duck out, just so you know. But my wife knows how much I love Kingdom Hearts. She knows, she's followed the series with me. She knows how important it is to me, and she was with me when I finished Kingdom Hearts 3. And she was like, kind of curious how I was feeling about it. And she knows how much I love Sora. And spoiler alert, here we go. The moment where Sora fades away when he's, holding hands with Kairi, and it's like they're about to kiss, and like they have the whole moment, and he fades away, and then the credits start, and I'm just sitting there like, and my wife kind of looks over at me slowly. She's like, "You hated that. You didn't like this at all, did you?" I'm like, "No, I'm pissed right now." She's like, I was like, I didn't think you like that. She's like, did they kill him off? I'm like, I don't know. Why would they do this?
Yeah.
Why would they do that to me? And that was one of that was the moment in which I was like, you know what? Maybe Kingdom Hearts 2 in hindsight was the perfect ending, But yeah.
It definitely catches you completely off guard, and thank God Remind explains it. About how that all works out, because there's they got to go into some time travel chicanery at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3 as well with that whole initial loss. But I mean, Remind does fix a lot of things and makes that ending work. I know I knew he's going to find some way to bait us further. Did not, and like, having Sora fade away. That said, the rest of the light moments, like seeing Axel and Shion in normal clothes outside those organization, like cool. I'm sorry, Shion looks great in her normal clothes. It's great. It's good stuff. It's great seeing them all together, and there is that happiness there until he fades away, and it's like it's that last little bit of devastation.
And I think part of the problem too is I think Kingdom Hearts 3 prior to Remind honestly did a terrible job of explaining the whole like following hearts through the power of waking.
Yeah.
The story did not explain the concept of the power of waking well at all.
No.
So even though they do hint that Sora's going to pay some sort of price, they don't really ever define why he has to pay that price or what that price is. And it just doesn't feel earned to me. It doesn't feel like they properly explained it enough to earn what happens at the end. But again, Remind does, fix that to a degree. And, going into Remind, I think, as we said, it does fix a lot of Kingdom Hearts 3 story elements, especially its ending, and gives us some incredibly cool moments. Getting to play as so many characters you didn't get to before, Kairi especially. That's a great moment. And we get, amazingly, Kingdom Hearts gets its own microwave tunnel moment in Remind, where
my god,
that amazing scene where Mickey is wounded and just and limping toward and just getting attacked on all sides and deflecting attacks. It's like Old Snake in the microwave tunnel, and it's amazing. It's such a cool moment, and it definitely does a lot to smooth over what I thought was a bit of a parts of a rocky ending in Kingdom Hearts 3 for sure.
I also appreciate Remind's ramp up in difficulty, because those fights against the organization members, they took me a while. And Yozora, oh my god, I still have not beat Yozora. Thank god you still get an ending if you don't beat him, because dear god, I can't do it.
I can't believe
was messed up.
I can't believe the nerve of the Yozora fight. If you have a Moogle coin and you get him, he uses your Moogle coin and revives himself. I'm just like, what? You can't. That's illegal.
I don't think I knew that.
You can't do that. Yeah, he'll use your Moogle coin. This is ridiculous.
It's so messed up. Yeah.
I think my favorite part of that whole sequence, aside from the team up with Kairi at the end, is also when all the Keyblade wielders are fighting together at the same time simultaneously, and you see them doing all these moments, and you see things like Terra and Riku just bump the hilt of their Keyblades like a bro fist, and it's I live for this right now. This is all the stuff that I wanted from this ending and more.
Right.
But yeah, it's such a hype moment, and just that whole Remind towards the end was just filled with the kind of moments I was hoping to see towards the end of Kingdom Hearts 3, because you can definitely tell by the end of this story, it's just the team is just shuffling to try and make everything make sense at once, and it's kind of fumbling on its own self, and Remind did what it could to resolve what it can, but you can only resolve so many things with time travel, honestly.
Yeah,
exactly. And that's another thing that
got us to our ending. I think that's the big thing. It's it set us up for it, and I do really appreciate the setup for it, because over time, I think ever since Birth by Sleep, Braig / Zigbar had become one of my favorite low key characters, and to see the payoff for him, I was happy. I was so happy.
That was crazy. That was wild. Definitely. And it makes you look back at his quotes in other games, even in Kingdom Hearts 2, it makes you look back at his quotes a lot more differently, because there's a different context for them. And I'm just my God, they really planned some of this out from the beginning.
I am so curious about the Master of Masters.
Me too, and what's in the box. And I think that's one of those things, though, that kind of makes me feel as though Kingdom Hearts 3 story is so uneven. There's a whole part of the story dedicated to Maleficent and Pete trying to find this box carried by the Master of Masters, and then it goes nowhere. They don't find it. And it literally goes nowhere, and so much of that and what's surrounding that is confined to lore you only get in the mobile games. But there are parts of it that work too. That big moment at the end of the game where I can't remember his name, but the main character from Union Cross, you have your whole near automata moment, and all the usernames of the people, of the users. Cross,
that was a fantastic moment.
From the past. That was you don't even have to play the game to have that be a fantastic moment. So there are parts of it that work for sure, but I don't like how so much of 3's story hinges on the mobile game's lore. But as we said, it does deliver in other ways in terms of characters getting their resolutions, and I feel a little bit better about Sora now that Remind kind of explained things a little bit. But yeah, that brings us to where we're at now, and of course, spoilers for where we are at now in Kingdom Hearts' current lore. But Nomura has been playing some 4D chess with us, because I don't think any of us could have possibly have seen coming what he did. The whole Varum Rex thing. We get this Varum Rex teaser when you get to the toy box world, and it's like, well, that's weird. Oh, it's a commercial for this thing
That's
in the
fun.
world. Okay, cool.
That's cute.
He's being cheeky towards versus 13. That's fun.
Yeah. But yeah, and so again, spoiler alert, but it turns out Sora has somehow been transported into the world of Varum Rex, which is where Yozora is chilling, but Yozora is essentially Noctis from Final Fantasy Versus 13, which never got made. So this is like Nomura's a madman. He's a madman. I never. And then, of course, when he's in the scene where you see Yozora in the car being driven, his driver has his earrings are an Organization 13 logo. What is going on with this crazy story?
We never throw away ideas in this house. We just reinterpret them and use them somewhere else. And that's exactly what they're doing with Yozora and whatever the hell's going on with this story now.
Yeah, Nomura's like, oh, you're not gonna let me make Versus 13? Fine. You know what? I'm gonna put it in Kingdom Hearts. We're gonna, well, yeah, I'll do it myself. And that's where we're at. All we really know about this right now is that the area that Sora's in is called Quadratum, and we learn in Melody of Memory. Well, I guess we should probably talk about Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory as well, but we learn in Melody of Memory that this is the world of fiction. It's not the world of light. It's not the world of darkness. It's not the world of dreams. This is a new world called the world of fiction. Okay, what does that mean? And how do we get there? Like,
it's all
I barely understood what the dream worlds meant. So yeah, to be fair,
yeah.
Now to put this out there, I have not beaten Melody of Memory. Funny enough, Amy has done that. She's seen all this, but she doesn't understand any of it because she just enjoyed playing the songs. So I still need to sit down and play through it. But that said, I don't care about spoilers here because I know it's all just plot at the end to set up the next thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's essentially, yeah. I mean, the Melody of Memory, the new story content doesn't come in until the very end, and it's essentially them going like Zexion and the rest of them is going through Kairi's memories to figure out where Sora might be, to get some sort of hint or clue as to where Sora might be. And I think she's unconscious for like a year or something. It's been a while since I've seen those scenes, but they take like several months or like a year to dive through her heart for any sort of, hint as to where Sora might be. And they find him, or they get that hint, and he's in Quadratum, the world of fiction. And that's where it kind of ends off. And so we just get the barest details.
Yeah, we get our setup. I went to the Wikipedia here to see what where we're all going, but we got everybody going in their own directions. Where Riku's hunting for Sora in Quadratum, trying to find Quadratum. Kairi is studying under Aqua. Hell yes.
Which is awesome.
Donald and Goofy are informing everybody else of how they're progressing, and Mickey is going to Scala at Column to investigate the ancient Keyblade Masters. So I'm like, oh hell yes, let's find out what the heck's going on with this whole thing.
Yeah, and so while I do wish Kingdom Hearts 3 had delivered on being a definitive ending to the Darkseeker saga, and maybe it would have been cool to start like a brand new chapter with different characters, damn it, he's done it again. He has dangled that carrot and made my imagination run wild about what Quadratum is and where this crazy ass story is going. And frankly, it doesn't matter. I will be with Sora to the very end. I love this character so much. I love this series. I got to see how it all goes. I got to follow it through to the end. So he's got me no matter where it goes from here. It's just it's wild. But it's 20 years of Kingdom Hearts. I can't believe it's been that long.
Yeah. At this very point in time, as of right now, this Sunday is going to be the Kingdom Hearts 20th anniversary event in Tokyo. And I'm hoping to see we see something further to see where we're gonna go with this series. I can't imagine we won't, but
I'll put it out there. I don't think it's gonna be Kingdom Hearts 4. I think we're getting another spin-off.
I think given their track record for this series, I don't think we're ready for 4 yet. But at least show me what's going on with these characters, as you mentioned, like as far as where they are right now. Hopefully something.
Right.
but yeah, I love the series for what it is.
Yeah,
Oh
it
my
has its
goodness.
ups, it has its downs, it has its moments of story that that are cheesy but wonderful, but also cheesy but dumb. But
Hmm.
I think that's what makes it great.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is so incredibly self-indulgent and shameless about what it is. If you don't like anime, you're not going to like this. But that's not for that crowd. It is for the people who love this stuff more than anything, who love those power of friendship moments. And instead of being embarrassed about it, they lean into it, and they just keep leaning into it. And clearly, the
Yeah.
LAPD agree with me.
Real quick,
Yeah.
because we did not mention it, and I know none of us have played it, but any experience with Dark Road, the mobile thing that
No, I haven't played
Oh.
Dark Road at all.
I have not. No.
Yeah.
No,
Man.
I'm looking forward to checking out the lore, but like that's a part of the story where I'm like, do I really care about what happened to young Xehanort on his travels? Like, I don't know how much I really care, but and I guess that was another thing. I don't really like what Kingdom Hearts 3 did to Xehanort's character. Like,
Oh yeah.
this dude was bad, man. This dude was he messed things up for so many people, ruined the lives of so many people, so many kids, and yet at the end they try to kind of somehow redeem him, and I'm like, no, man. Like, yeah, his friendship with Ericus and them moving on together, I guess, but
Mhm.
it was really, really hard for me to have any sympathy for Xehanort. Like, I was like, really? We're gonna take
Yeah.
that route? Like, we're supposed to feel sorry for him? Nah, I didn't. It didn't work for me.
Yeah, I get you.
We wanted blood.
Yeah, we wanted blood.
he was such just a nightmare in Birth by Sleep that's why, you know,
Exactly.
I think that's why we just
Yeah.
we wanted blood.
Right. But yeah, I don't think we need to mention Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory too much. It's a great game. There's the barest bit of new story content at the end, which we already talked about.
Mhm.
But it's a great rhythm game.
Oh,
It
yeah.
sure is a lot of fun.
I want to
gotten
see
highest-
the other theater rhythm games come to console like this. Like, let's do it.
Oh, me too. Me too. And I still go back and play Melody of Memory quite a bit. I'm trying to get the highest ranking on every song and the highest difficulty, and I've gotten through about 2/3 of the songs.
Nice.
It's a lot of fun. But I do agree. I think it was a Magish in our patron chat a little bit above who said they didn't love what they did with Kyrie's character. Yeah, saying Melody of Memory's treatment of Kyrie mildly bugs me, to be honest. She's the poster girl of the game, and the game is about her memories, but she's playable for about half a level in total. And yeah, I agree. The way Kingdom Hearts 3 and this game handled Kyrie in general, especially after building her up, like, hey, she's going to train to be a Keyblade Master, it's going to be awesome, and then she essentially just gets got at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3
Mhm.
and doesn't really do a whole lot. But now she's training under Aqua, and
I
Aqua's gonna make sure that
I
doesn't-
know what I hope. I hope this spinoff actually gives us a true Kyrie playable game. Like,
Me
have
too.
Aqua
I
and,
think
that'll
and
be
Kyrie go through worlds and do this, some sort of mastery exam or something like that. Let's go
Me
for
too.
it.
Yeah, she's like
And
the
for
last. Yeah, she's like the last Keyblade wielder that doesn't have a proper like playable time, like the Birth by Sleep trio, the Destiny Island trio. Like Riku obviously has a lot. He really has a lot of time where you play as him through Chain of Memories,
Yeah, he
Dream
does.
Drop Distance, and so on. So
Mhm.
Kyrie's turn should be by now.
It is.
Yeah.
It is high time for Kyrie to get her own game or be a central playable character in an upcoming game. But I will say, for all my belly aching about certain elements of Kingdom Hearts 3, it did finally deliver. I'm a big Sora Kyrie shipper, and it did finally give me those warm, fuzzy
Mhm.
moments between them that I had been sharing the Palpu fruit that I had been waiting for 20
Especially because Kingdom
And
Hearts 2
finally did it.
does not deliver on that, because they make it seem like a big
Yeah.
deal to get together, but the entire time it just feels like he's more concerned about Riku. So that's where the
Yeah.
Riku shipping began.
That's just
Yeah,
the whole joke
exactly.
about
So
him.
I get why people ship Sora and Riku together, and that's totally cool. I'm a Sora Kyrie guy, but I totally get why people ship Sora and Riku as well. So, but
Yeah,
it
there's
did
the-
deliver on those moments. The hand holding, him protecting her, them, you make me strong, or I think it's like, you make me strong, Kyrie, and just her kind of blushing. I'm like, I've been waiting for this forever. This is great. It took so
Oh my
long.
gosh.
But yeah, well, I know we could keep on talking about Kingdom Hearts forever. This has already gone on way longer than most of our discussions. I had a
Uh-oh.
feeling it would. You
Yeah.
know what? 20 years of Kingdom Hearts, this warrants it. This
It's a
warrants
lot.
an extra long discussion. Daniel, Derrick, anything else you guys want to say about Kingdom Hearts before we head off here?
I still will love Kingdom Hearts 2 with all my heart and soul.
Nice.
And also thank you, Birth by Sleep, for giving me Fortune Street Light, aka Command Board, because that's how I discovered Fortune Street, essentially.
There you go.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
Awesome. This is my lucky charm here. I was clutching this little guy when Sora was announced for Smash. I was just like, this is my last chance. Come on, summon Sora, and it happened. So, Derrick, anything else you want to say?
Thank you for introducing me to Yoko Shimomura, because I didn't realize her body of work before
yeah.
this moment. That was one of the big takeaways I got from this. I see Yoko Shimomura, it's like Uematsu at this point. It's like, hello, I'm now more interested in this game.
Yeah, she's my favorite musician of all time, and Kingdom Hearts is a massive part of the reason why. So yeah, she's incredible, and this series' music is incredible. And I will end things with a hot take. I love Simple and Clean. Love Simple and Clean. And I like Sanctuary, but Don't Think Twice, I think, is my favorite of the main theme songs.
I think you're right. It really got up there. It's good.
Yep. It's really good. And the way it hits in the credits after everything has happened, I think Don't Think Twice has to be my favorite. But with that said, everybody, thank you so much for watching and for listening. I know it's been a longer than usual discussion, but this has been a blast looking back on 20 years of Kingdom Hearts. As I said before, normally our weekly discussions are voted on by our patrons at the producer tier and above. And if you want to find out more about that, you can head on over to patreon.com/gbgaming. We offer a variety of tiers you can support us at. But if you can't do that, we would just really appreciate it if you could hit that like button, subscribe to our channel. Every little bit really does help as we continue to grow. But with that said, that's all from us today, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Till we meet again, fellas. Huh?